Welcome to the A.L.L podcast.
We're the Academy of Logic and Light. I'm Meagan.
I'm Kat.
I'm Julie. We are an ethical community education platform that provides a safe space for people to practice their spirituality without indoctrination.
So we talk a lot about starting an ethical academy. So let's have a conversation about what ethics mean in our practice and in general, I suppose. Julie?
No. Can we turn the time over to you?
Damn it, this is the second time.
Well, then you should be practiced.
I know. Damn it. I knew you were going to say my name too, and I was like, no.
Okay. Kat, answer your own question right now.
Ethics for me is a moral... What's this word? this and this, the beginning and the end. No, like, God, what is the word? Like a personal standard of, like, morals. But I also think it can be kind of gray, because there's the black and the white, but it's situational, so... Yeah, I don't know. It makes it really difficult to talk about.
Yeah,
It's a personal standard of rules that you apply your moral code to. Does that sound right?
Okay.
Is that the right words?
Yeah.
But I guess it could look different for anyone. So then I'm like, okay, well, what are the moral standards of, like, a rapist, right? Like,
Right.
do they have them? So then is everyone just going around by their own moral standard? Does it apply? Is there a standard set of morals that we all know based on what's good, what's bad?
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of things lack an ethical space or a backbone of ethics, is because it can become so fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, a lot of people lean their ethics or their moral code into their religion.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be like, atheists don't have morality.
Which
Right.
is so not
Which is
true.
ridiculous.
So not true.
The opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, in kind of just the simplest way, ethics are just, are you a good person? Are you helpful? Are you kind? Are you doing what you can to help other people to be supportive? Or are you dragging everything down? Are you hard to be around?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In a very broad-based way.
Are you doing something where other people are like,
Yeah.
See, I have a strong feeling that, like, I think everyone, and this is where it gets really hard, though, because when you look at morality, I think that there's a lot of corruption around people trying to enforce their own morality on other people, and that, to me, is a huge issue, and I really think that, again, in my vision, that ethics and morality kind of is like, you do what you want, and we let people do what they want until it starts to have an effect on another person.
Mm-hmm.
And if that other person isn't, like, consenting to whatever that effect is, then that's the breach of the ethics for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we should just, you should be able to pick whatever path you want. But once that starts encroaching on other people's freedoms, that's where I start to draw a line.
But then it brings up the next good point of that person needs to know what their boundaries are to know that their morality clause has been breached.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know what their boundaries even are.
Yeah.
So they don't know until afterwards. Usually they're like, oh, that was icky, or that didn't make me feel right, or something. And then they usually drop it, or they gaslight themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is problematic, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a tricky subject.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why it's important to have an ethical space for people to come into, because we're trying to help not create the boundaries, but, like, provide a space that has boundaries, and then from there you can explore whatever amount you want, but you kind of have that starting space of zero of, like, here's your safety net. You can start here, and then from there you can decide what you want to dip into and what you are interested in, instead of saying, oh, we're going to breach your boundaries and that's how you're going to find them. Instead, we're going to say, let's give you boundaries, and then you can reach out of them and start to feel for yourself what feels right and what doesn't.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, totally. In my mind, ethics are something that surround an entity, and integrity is something that surrounds an individual.
I like that.
Yeah.
So if an individual has integrity, in my mind, they don't have an issue with the ethics of a company person. You know, like if the company has good ethics, right? Mm-hmm. Are you inclusive? Are you diverse? Are you welcoming? Do you hold people accountable when they step out of the bounds? All those types of things. And I think that starts with individual integrity. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that also looks different for every individual person, what integrity looks like. I remember as a little kid that kind of the thing that I was taught about integrity was, would you do something if nobody knew you were doing it? Mm-hmm. If you knew you were going to get in trouble, if somebody saw you do it, would you do it if no one was looking? And that's a hard thing to be like, you know, like, nobody's in the room. Should I take this candy bar?
I was literally just thinking that's how I eat cake. Would you eat this?
This reminds me a lot of kind of the shopping cart problem, if you've ever heard that. Of like, would you return a shopping cart? You know, do you return the shopping cart?
You shouldn't get to vote if you don't return your shopping carts. I have a list, and that's on it.
Yeah. Well, because it's just
You're a bad person.
It's a simple thing to do. It's a slight inconvenience for you, but it's going to make the next person's life, the people that work there, it's going to be easier for everyone other than you. And it's not even a huge inconvenience. Like, and do you return the shopping cart when you're done shopping, or do you just leave it in the parking spot? You know, and that is always so telling, because, you know, that's the one thing, like, no one's going to come and get you in trouble for not returning your shopping cart. Right. I have seen some people approach people, but we should start doing that more often.
I was just going to pass out stickers. You don't get to vote anymore. You're not a part of a collective society.
Yeah.
The other question is, what are your fail-safes in choosing a practitioner for you, like spiritual practitioner for yourself?
That one I think is hard for me, because I really just go off of like kind of that instinctual feeling that I get from talking with somebody. Do they make me feel comfortable and safe? And are the way that they talk about their practice and the way that everything's, you know, going to occur, are they disclosing the information to me? Are they making me feel like I understand what's happening before I go into it? Or are they just saying, oh, by the way, like, you know, am I just going into it and then being like, oh, I didn't know that you were just going to read from the tarot book when I came into this tarot reading, you know? And so I feel like when people disclose, like, oh, hey, I'm still practicing, like, I'm going to give you my opinion, but I might refer to this, like, that, to me, makes me feel so much more comfortable than going into something and then being like, oh, I didn't realize this was a hands-on thing. Like, you didn't consent with me that we were going to do hands-on, you know, even though it might be a given in some instances. Like, the people who just kind of say, okay, are you fine if I touch you, or would you like me to, like, hover? And, like, those kinds of just little check-ins with me make me feel comfortable with somebody. And as I've gotten to know more people and had more experiences, I've been able to watch better for, like, oh, who's disclosing up front the expectations and who's just saying, yeah, sure, come. And then I feel lost, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a good point.
I think for me, a big part of it is if somebody that I know and trust has used this practitioner and recommended them, that's a huge green flag for me. Also, transparency, like Meagan was saying, is huge. Making sure that they are being upfront and honest about where they are in their practice and how they practice is super important. Another green flag I look for is how long they've been practicing, and if they are more underground, I kind of think that's I mean, it depends on what the modality is, because some modalities are just naturally going to be more underground just because of the nature that we work in. But sometimes I feel like that can be a little bit of a red flag, because why aren't you promoting yourself, or why aren't you out in the world? Are you hiding from someone? Like, there's somebody you don't want them to know what you're doing. That means you're not really fully living authentically to me.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of am like, oh, that's not necessarily a red flag, but it makes me it makes me question.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then, just a big part of it is learning your own discernment in a practitioner and what feels good to you, what vibe feels good. And I think that's also why it's so important to have so many different people practicing different modalities, because not everybody's going to vibe with everybody, and that doesn't mean that they're bad at what they do or whatever. It just means they're great for somebody else, not great for me.
Yeah. I agree. Some people are a little, like, brutally honest, like, practitioners, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe, like, I could come here on Mondays when I'm more emotionally stable for this advice. You know, or, like, okay, I need, like, a little softer vibe today. You can, like, choose the vibe. Okay, so what are some of your fail-safes as a practitioner to stay ethical?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like to front load people with a lot of information. I think sometimes it's probably too much information. But I would rather have somebody come in and be like, okay, I get it, than the opposite of, oh, I'm totally surprised by this. I also like to be upfront about, again, like, my level of education and where that came from. So that if people have questions, I typically always like to do a consult conversation, even if it's just like 10 minutes over the phone, so that I know what they're looking for, and I can tell them more about what my practice is and what I do, to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for both of us before they show up and I show up, and then we both wasted time to get into a space of like, oh, this isn't exactly what they were looking for. Or something like that, because I've had that happen where people don't really understand exactly what it is that I do, and they're like, oh, I thought you did this thing, and I'm like, no. And then we're like, well, now what?
Okay.
Like, do I still, like, I don't want to charge you, but also, like, I just took all my time to set up the room and be in this space, and, you know, I think a lot of that's just live and learn kind of stuff, but. And then a lot of it for me also is surrounded by grounding. I feel like when I'm grounded, I'm more connected, and it's easier for me to be able to stay within boundaries and read boundaries a lot better than when I'm like chaotic and kind of all over the place.
That's a good one.
I feel like for me, because I like reading cards, and I usually try to not read cards for someone who hasn't given me permission to read their cards. So, you know, if someone were to come with me with a query and they're like, oh, can you tell me, is my husband cheating on me? Like, I'm not going to read that. Like, let me read how your relationship is, like, from your, like, center, and, like, if it's benefiting you, or if there might be something that you need to address with him. But I'm not going to, like, try to get into that energy, because one, like, I haven't been given permission to do that, but two, like, that's an energy that I can't tap into. Like, I don't want to give you all this advice about your husband and then be, like, totally tapped into the wrong spot, or, like, I'm just kind of guessing because I have no idea what's really out there for him. And without, you know, someone's permission, there's a good chance that their guides aren't going to disclose information or, you know, really open up. And so trying to read for somebody anyway, that's one way that I really try. And then I also feel like just making sure that I'm holding space for people really helps. So just kind of letting them have whatever reaction they're going to have, and really just making space for that, and be like, yeah, okay, like, feel those feelings and let me help you to address them, because I can give someone news that, I'm just like, here's what the cards say. Like, oh yeah, this is going to feel like a pimple popping type of energy right now. And they might have a really like big reaction to that. And I feel like holding that space for them to have those big reactions can really help, because I feel, especially with like tarot and like those quick kind of, okay, come sit down, let me just give you a quick like one card reading or pick a card. I feel like it's so easy to discount the other person's like reaction to it, and you're not really holding the space for them. You're just like having a quick communication conversation, and then you're like, okay, bye. Like, where I want to make myself available to have that conversation. Oh, okay, like this happened. Well, do you want to like get that off your chest, or do you want me to pull another card for guidance? Like, what can I do to help you kind of feel like you're moving forward? I don't want to make you feel like leave you hanging after this, or make you feel overwhelmed with, I pulled the Tower card. Okay, good luck, have a great day. No, I'm going to tell you what that means, and that it's not always the worst thing to happen.
Especially the Death card or the Tower card.
Yeah. So, and I feel like most practitioners do that, but there are some, specifically in like those kind of quick, like at a fair, let me just do this thing real fast, that kind of miss the actually giving the other person the exchange of energy, instead of just being like, oh yeah, here I had this conversation. This is what the conversation was. Mm-hmm. Good luck.
I really love that you brought that up, because I think that is one of the most unethical things that can happen, is when people walk up to another person, and this happens all the time on social media. I don't know if you guys get these DMs all the time. God, yeah. I came across your page and I felt your energy. Let me give you a reading.
Mm-hmm. We get into the school one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, bro, don't you know what we do?
I'm like, you don't get to tap into my energy without my consent.
Period.
Mm-hmm. Come to me and say, hey, I feel your vibe, you seem cool, I have this ability, do you mind if I tap into your energy real quickly? That is 100 times different than somebody walking up to you and being like, oh, I know this, this, and this, and you're like, no, get out of my, obviously I think some of us have better walls up than others, but the fact that people feel comfortable behaving in that way, it really, really gives all these practices a bad name.
Oh my gosh.
For sure. Like,
I have
that's
a really good example for this. This practitioner, I met her through an energy exchange, hired her for something like in a whole different state, and then become friends and all this stuff. And I guess the boundaries get a little bit different when you're friends versus practitioner. And one day she just called me up and she was like, oh my gosh, I just have to tell you, your man is not for you. I'm so sorry. And like, I've been with him for like years. She's like, I'm so sorry, but do you want to go dancing tonight? I was like... So like years later, she contacts me again with another message out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm sorry you didn't like the last message. I was like, it wasn't the message. Like, I've gotten that message quite a few times, actually. Mm-hmm. I already knew. But it was your delivery. And she goes, oh, sometimes there's no filter for the channeling. And I was like, that's not true. That's not true at all.
Yeah.
You're in control of your body. You're making it seem like the Holy Spirit has control of your tongue or something. You know what I mean? Like, you have autonomy. Mm-hmm. Take responsibility for your actions. That's not how you deliver a message. And you definitely don't just be like, you want to go dancing afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about the boundaries of the practitioner. It's not even just about the person that's being approached that is having their boundaries crossed. As a practitioner, especially if you're a reader, you should have a boundary that you are not tapping into anybody's energy before you have that consent.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
That is draining on yourself as a practitioner. You're just out there spreading it around to everybody. Mm-hmm. Like, have some...
I don't tap into any client's energy until about 10-15 minutes before, when I'm already setting the intention for my space and like I fix myself, and then as I'm setting the room, I'm like, okay, here we are preparing, calling in my own guides. All right, now I'm inviting your guides to come. They don't have to show up, but like, here it is, and then we don't even do that until like 10 minutes before, and then afterwards we cut all of that off so I don't continue doing the work for you,
Right.
and you don't feel my stuff, and that's the most responsible way we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I have a crazy story.
Yes.
So my husband has a friend who his wife started talking to someone at a crystal shop, and this individual came over to help them grid their house, and he came over to grid the house, and then when he did, he said, there's a dark portal in this room, and it was her husband's office. And that's my husband's friend, and he's like, there's a dark portal in this room. It's like, it's straight to the devil, like all of this stuff. Like, there's dark energy. This is why you're having all of these issues, is because of whoever, like, this space. And so they like gridded around it, but it ended their marriage. Because it just kind of slowly built on all this stuff. And, who knows what thought she might have been having before. But then someone comes into your home and tells you that, like, and then he has since, like, he spends time with the kids, and he has, like, 3 or 4 kids who all won't even speak to him because...
He's a dark portal.
Yeah, because he's a dark portal. He's the reason that everything bad happened in their lives.
How sad.
Yeah,
oh.
and so I have no idea.
With your words.
Yeah, and it just is like,
wow.
But the practitioner is still like heavily involved in their life, and like is all the time with the kids and the mom and all this stuff.
A little sus.
It's super, super weird, and who knows like what the reasoning behind it is, but it just...
Oh my gosh.
It just is like, I don't know. That's kind of where I was talking about. Like, you're trying to tap into someone else's energy. Like, maybe it's a dark hole because that person has good boundaries. And they're like, no, I don't want anybody, like, coming into my space that's not invited. And so you walk into that space and you're like, this is a weird energy. But it's because it's trying to be protected from you. And
also,
so...
it could be that whoever the previous owner was.
Yeah.
Like, of the house. It could be so many things.
Yeah. And it just implies so much when you start talking about stuff like that.
That's one of my fail-safes is when I do have a message, and it's not often I don't try to channel for people. It's really not my favorite activity because it's not fun. But if I have a message that comes in for someone, I usually am like, is this advice something that I would give to most humans? Like, drink more water, put your feet in the earth. You know what I mean? Like, super simple stuff. But, like, I don't know. I wouldn't just be given any, like, crazy life advice, because then I'd have to do my own security checks.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that brings up another point. I think that a lot of people, in my experience, want to view themselves as something. That they can do something that no one else can do, that they're very gifted or talented, which is fine. I mean, a lot of these practices do take a lot of work and a lot of practice, and there are people on different levels. Not to say I believe that everybody has access to all of this. It just takes practice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an exercise. They're muscles. All of it.
Yeah.
Spiritual muscles.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that people, and it sounds like that person may have been one of these people, want to be like, only I can do this for you.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, like, if that were me in my situation, because I grid people's houses.
I love gridding.
Yeah. I would say, and I felt a certain way, I would say, there's things going on in this house that could be from the previous owner. I'm going to recommend that you have this person come and do a house clearing for you. They're better skilled at it than I am, and then I'm happy to come back and grid it for you and your energy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that like, a lot of people don't know to start a new house on a clean slate.
Right.
Like, walls hold energy, ground holds energy, and when you buy a new house, if somebody else has lived there before, sometimes it stays.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't know how to clean that, then that's so sad.
But I also think that comes back to gatekeeping. If you're the only person that can do all the things for one person, sus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
there's not a competition. Like, I know for facts, like, I want to recommend everyone for tarot for you. Like, everyone, you can have your pod of people to recommend things for. And can I do some of it? Sure. But is there better equipped people for it? Whoa, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd rather you go to a way more qualified person for that than, but I think that's a really good way to, like, see ethically who you're picking.
Right.
But also a moral code for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining the A.L.L podcast.
To find out more, you can find us online at academyoflogicandlight.org or on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Academy of Logic and Light.
If you live in the Salt Lake Valley, we'd love to see you at one of our upcoming events.
And don't forget to support our growth by joining our Patreon.
Until next time, lead with logic and light.